Off. Morning all. No mai haere mai kia koutou, kia tai my name o tēnei hui. Aha ko rā mā runga Zoom. Aha ko ngā raru o enei wā, he rangi a tāhua. Kati kei te Karakia au. Whaia ki te uru tapu nui o tāne, tāne te wānanga, tāne te pukinga, tāne te waiora. Tāne te tokorangi, puta ki te whai ao, ki te ao marama, te tuhi te rārama, e noho te matara nei. E rongo whakairi aki ki runga, kia tina, homi e, hui e, tai ki e. Right, so this agenda was vying for the smallest ever, but I assume most people are aware that the public excluded has been added to the open agenda now. It was excluded because there was a government announcement that hadn't been made, but that's all sweet now. So the public excluded item will be part of the public agenda from now. So just wanted to there. So I have no apologies. What was that message that came up with for Meredith before? Was she sitting in the room, or there was a message that came up with Kerry and Meredith to support?
That was just who was missing from the call at that time.
Oh, okay, yeah. All right, so no one's got anything. All right, declarations of interest. Nothing there. All right.
I'm just going to check, Andy, that either Meredith, is Kerry here? Because sometimes people text me or email me to let me know that they're not coming. I'll just check and come back to that.
All right, thank you. Okay, and we'll move on to confirmation of the non-confidential minutes. Moved by Terry, or you wanted to speak, Terry, move. And seconded by Shannon. Just one thing from me, I see on this noted in these minutes and on the action sheet for today's meeting is the Matawai Tirau drainage system report. Just wondering about that. David, is it?
Yeah. So through you, Chair, that report is tracking. It'll be coming to the next meeting. It isn't available at this stage, but I will send around a update of what we have spent and where we have spent so far in the last few months, but it's one that we have got tracking coming forward. We just need to work with Fulton Hogan around some of the details of that.
All right. And just a quick thing for the secretary, I'm sorry I didn't pick it up when the minutes come out first. Just on page 8, there's a secretarial note that's under a heading which it doesn't relate to. So we've got a so it just needs to be moved there. So it's got a heading there, a secretarial note under it, which doesn't relate to the heading. All right, you got something from the minutes, Sandra?
Yes, it's just following up from yourself, Andy. It's actually the Muriwai drainage, not Matawai.
Oh, sorry. Thank you for that. Yep.
Yeah. So it needs to be changed.
Yep. Is it noted on? I haven't got the action sheet there, but can't remember if it's my typo or theirs. Is it noted on the report as Muriwai or Matawai?
It says Muriwai on the action sheet.
Okay, my bad. Cool. All right, if there's nothing further, all those in favour? Against? Carried. Anything from the action sheet other than what I've raised with the Muriwai Tirau drainage system? All right, cool. Nothing there. Leave of absence, nothing. Acknowledgements and tributes, nothing. Public input and petitions. Bill, I did have a note about the Kopu Aurora Road petition, and I believe it might be in your hands now because we're on Zoom.
Chairman, yeah, it is. I just queried to Dave, I suppose, at the end of the day, he's responsible for roading overall. About 6 months ago, I put in a request for service to have something done from State Highway 35 into Waipiro. I've since had a delegation to home, and then I had a petition given to me at the same time. I went down through Waipiro before I came to Gisborne on Tuesday, and apart from a few cones, nothing has been done. Now, I'm just wondering, and I don't want to point the finger in any direction, whether the communications between our people and our contractor or when it gets to our contractor, they reprioritize. Because there are 2 sections there, and I mean dangerous. When I say dangerous, if I'd had the photos be presented, I would have brought them with me. One side of the road has about 30, maybe more feet of fence hanging in the air, and it's a very narrow driveway down to single lane, and it's had the cones there, as I said, for 6 months. It's just that, you know, the work needs to be done, and I'm sure Dave can shake someone up and make sure that it gets done.
All right, Bill, this is just for the acceptance of the petition at this stage. We are going into public excluded at the end of this meeting to discuss roading, so perhaps we can go into a little bit more detail on that and that, but at this stage, we're just receiving a petition if it is in your hand for you to present to us.
Sorry about that, Mr. Chairman.
That's all right. Okay, so nothing further on public input and petitions. Any extraordinary business from anyone? Anything to add? No little hands there. All right, we'll go to our first report, which is a noting report about the Ruatoria.
Sorry, Mr. Chair. Can I just say that if anyone didn't see the petition, it was attached to our calendar invite.
Yeah, thanks, Shane. Okay, we got Murray, Ruatoria Water Supply Report, and it's been written by Murray Campbell.
Yep, morning everyone.
Yeah, perhaps if you can just give us a situation report from your perspective, and then we'll take it from there.
Cool, no worries. Yeah, the report has progressed quite quickly in the last few weeks. Yesterday or Monday, we were on site confirming with Whakarua Park the drill point where we're going to put down an exploratory bore, hopefully in about 3 weeks. So things are progressing very fast. There's a lot of positivity now behind this, and we're working through the legal side, as in the lease from the land, and also working with the Runanga with a cultural impact assessment. And so the risk with this project is that there's a strong possibility of running out of time. So there's most things have been fast tracked, but everybody's aligned. The project was in limbo a little bit last year, where it was difficult to get everybody around the table, but we're now underway and making good progress. The budget is tight, but there is an opportunity that from the Middlewide job, we may have surplus funds that we're allowed to transfer over into this project. So where we are today, we've yet to establish whether the bore is appropriate, but all the science is has reported in that it will work. The plan B is to then, if we don't strike water there, the plan B is to talk with the high school and see if we can share their bore and possibly expand these.
All right, it's a briefing on it. Yeah, I had concerns. First one was whether the 505 was going to be enough, especially on the basis of it's had an extension and it's got a completion date now of the end of June. What's the definition of completion to meet that deadline? Is that operational? Because I think no way it's going to be operational by then.
They told us that it has to be Oh, sorry, Dave.
Through you, Chair, we're working with DIA and what it means for all of the projects around the country with funding when it comes to this, because we're all impacted by COVID and those sort of impacts when it comes to supply chain. What we're looking to work through is it's around the bore being in and the equipment being placed on site is actually quite a quick process once we can get that underway. Once we get the investigations and things done, it will be a quick process from there. Barry, is there anything you're going to add?
Just quickly, can anyone else see Pat? I can't see her on my screen, and I know she had queries around this. So. Are you there, Pat?
Email Andy saying, can Heather please send the meeting link to her private email, as she has just dropped off, internet's just dropped off her iPad. So Heather, if you can just flick the link to mail, that would be thank you.
Right, sorry, David, were you still going or are you right? No, you're right. Okay, we've got some hands up there. So we'll go Sandra, Tony, Shannon, Debbie. Sandra.
Yeah, thank you, Murray and David. Great report. It is, I'm more than happy to note it, given that it is for noting, so happy to move it for noting. I think it's so important for these townships to be autonomous when it comes to their own water supply, particularly with what's coming down the pipeline at us with effectively centralisation, even though they don't like us calling it that, of the service. So really happy to see this progress at the best possible clip, David. Thank you.
Thanks, Sandra. Tony.
Just, Murray, can you clarify why the Ruatoria spring, or it's one of a better term, isn't going to be utilised?
Yeah, recently, obviously in summer, the spring has struggled to keep up with demand. And more recently, there's some of the tests regarding the water quality have indicated that there's runoff issues into that source now.
Thank you.
Just an extension on that, the complete data going back to January 84, how much confidence have you got in the data? That's an incredibly long time ago. Yes, the report that Judith Robinson put together, that's the attachment to this report. We think it's extremely valuable. The science team believe it's sound, and they don't believe it's altered a heck of a lot over time. And so yeah, it's very relevant to where we've got to today. Thank you. Tony, you finished or? Yep, okay, Shannon.
Thank you. I was, when I read through this, I did question, considering Te Mana o Te Wai and the challenges we currently face with water extraction from aquifers or groundwater, whether there was a sensible approach for a joint management agreement within something that enables local iwi or hapu to put in place rahui on the provision of water if there is degradation to the groundwater source, or if there is, or if we see over extraction, something that's more flexible and I guess more in line with the way Māori manage resources of other types. It's just that our current process doesn't really allow for that level of flexibility as we see in the Makoti aquifer declining, for example.
So through you, Chair, one of the things we've done with this project is partnered with Te Rūnanganui o Ngāti Porou, and also been working with local mana whenua about the cultural impact assessment for the consent that we are going to put forward. So very much the project is about partnering with our Ruatoria community to make sure that we get not just the product right, but also how do we actually make sure it's culturally safe and that they feel that they're part of the decision making and part of the project. The ongoing management we've suggested is something that we can partner with the Whakatua Park, but also with Ngāti Porou, Te Rūnanganui, about how do we carry on that ongoing service provision and what does the operation look like. So we've been talking to them as to how we're actually going to operate some of the things that will happen day to day once we do actually have that supply up and running.
Yeah, that's the area, the piece that I feel isn't, obviously it's not in the report yet. The report's about establishment. It's that operational side that I think is the gives effect to joint management, gives effect to true partnership, and I would like to, I'd like to follow that piece as you develop it, because it's, I think it's important when it comes to protecting these resources long term that we don't rely on today's science to inform or to ignore tomorrow's problem, if you know what I mean.
Thanks, Shannon. Debbie.
Thank you. I was just wondering what the estimated running costs of it a year once it's up and running. Do you know that yet?
Murray?
Yeah, that's a very good question, Debbie. That's totally depends on the water quality, and we're anticipating that it is reasonably clean and will not require a heck of a lot of energy to make it potable. And so we're unable to run those numbers yet, but the majority of the costs will be in electricity.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Debbie. Meredith?
Kia ora. Thank you. I just, sorry, this question has been re-asked. I was just wondering what work has been done to look into all that runoff, the regulatory role we have as council, looking at what is causing or creating some of the, unhealth of the water itself. So is that part of this whole project, obviously, but yeah, resourcing that to find out what stakeholders are in the mix that are, causing maybe some of the runoff concerns. You mentioned it earlier when I was listening in. So Mario, just what is that work in the mix as well?
That's probably a little bit outside my scope on that one, to be fair.
So part of that part, through you, Chair, is around a lot of those things that we're finding in the water is around drinking water standards. It doesn't necessarily mean that the water is dirty or there's runoff. There's also naturally occurring minerals that are in that water, and there's a whole lot of things that are naturally there. What we're referring to is the spring that we have there at the moment that people are taking from. It's literally in the middle of a paddock with a fence around it. It's open, so ducks can land in it, all of those kind of things. So that's the sort of contamination that we're talking about. It's not surrounded by intensive farming or anything like that. It's just simply an open water source, and that's what we're trying to move away from, because then there's less variables day to day for the operation.
Thank you. Councillor Seymour, I see you dropped out just at a critical time. Some of the questions that we had on the phone came up straight away, but I'm quite happy for you to put them again on the basis of...
Thank you very much, Chair. Yeah, I was there for 10 minutes beforehand, and then the iPad decided it didn't want to use my internet connection, so we're on my own, and that's why Heather sent me a new link. So I'm sorry we've got Heather's name up there acknowledging that. I did have some concerns that I'd shared with Councillor Cranston earlier this morning, and they have been answered. I'd like to hear the explanation though. Do we honestly believe we can have this operational by June 22, when page 18 in the same report says operational by March was a requirement? Can I have that question answered first, please?
So through you, Chair, we have been working with DIA around our funding due to COVID impacts and delays that we have when it comes to supply for materials. So we've very much been open with them around where we're at in the process, so they're aware of the timeframes that we're working to. We're confident that once we have approval that we know that the water supply is going to be the right one for us. It's installation of equipment. It doesn't take long for us to put this in once we do come to. There's no big structures, there's no big foundations or anything like that. So it'll be quite a quick build once we're able to press the green light on it.
Thanks, Mr. Wilson. But if we're going to test what's in the aquifer or from the bore, if I think about the work we did in Oawa last year, that took a lot longer than we have here just to test 2 or 3 bores. So it was those kind of timeframes I was concerned about, less about the build. So have we allowed for that kind of timeframe and consultation?
So through you, Chair, we have got them booked in for this month. They are turning up, so they will be here later on this month to come and do the test that we need. We booked them a couple of months ago for them to be able to be here and do the works that we need to undertake the drilling. It's around the quantity of water. It's slightly different than the testing we were doing in Uawa, and it's a different type of test that we'll be doing. So it's around confirming what we think we already know, and as Councillor Burdett's aware, when we've been meeting with Whakatua Park, we're 95% sure it's all going to work. We just want to test it once we go down and check those bores.
Thank you. And then I did have one further question, as I've raised with Councillor Cranston. This paper talks about a particular sum of money, 505,000, I think, whereas the paper to wastewater management the other day talked about 700,000 for the same project, and someone that's in report on alternative use and disposal discussing the 11 million that we received from the government, and it says there, and this is only last week, 700,000 set aside for Ruatoria.
I can answer that. The 500,000 is still what we're working with the government, but you may have missed it. We're expecting to have a surplus from the Muruwai project to move over to Ruatoria if needed. So possibly that's where that prediction of 700 has come from.
Well, that's not, I get that, but that's not what it actually says. It says a water supply from New Home. It actually says 700K was set aside for Ruatoria to have a community water supply. It's actually, that's how it's written in the paper for the meeting of the 10th of February. But okay, I accept, I hear what you're saying. Thank you. Thanks very much, Councillor Cranston. Those are my questions. I did have a question to myself about operational costs, but Councillor Gregory's asked that question. I heard that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Seymour. Josh.
Mr. Chairman.
I'm happy to go after Uncle Bill.
Okay, we'll up you there, Bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a very good initiative promoted by the council towards the middle of last year. There are three factions involved: Whakarua Park, the council, who have the money and the expertise, the Runanga in terms of the cultural impact. It is the business of Whakarua Park, who are duly elected to serve the public. The same thing with the Runanga or Ngāti, the same thing with us. It's the public at large that are going to benefit from this. It doesn't matter how much money is spent there. The water is there. I know that because the other side of the park, under the grandstand, there is a bore there, and it's stood the test of time and all the tests, health tests. And when the spring packed up, that was where they sourced the water for not only Ruatoria, but the whole of the coast. So in my and the aqua runs straight across to the bowling bridge. So as I say, everything's go, and so far everything has worked out well. The first meeting I chaired, the second meeting our chairman David Gosselth was back there, and there's general consensus that Murray and the council team are doing an excellent job, and I don't want to see anything impeded. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Josh.
Kia ora, thank you, Mr. Chair. I te tūtai nei rata mi nunui ki a koe mō tō karakia ki te whakatimata tātou hui. Thank you very much, Andy, for your karakia to start us off today. I do have a question, but I want to precede it with general support for Councillor Dowsing's comments. We do need to make sure that the Ruatoria aquifer and the engagement of it from an iwi, hapu and mana whenua level is established prior to the procedures being set. Because as we've recently been reminded about, our hapu engagement re-water allocation on the flats, past councils haven't taken the time to ensure that at a policy level those engagement things had been set. I'd also like to acknowledge, like Councillor Dowsing, that this is in its operational space. However, we as councils, we give strategic direction. So I did want to ask Mr. Wilson, is there anything that we need to do as councillors from a policy level, policy-wise, to ensure things like long-lasting, meaningful hapu and mana whenua engagement occurs for this up at Ruatoria and future water spaces?
So through you, Chair, one of the things we've been really conscious of with this project is making sure that we have got the Runanga and the local stakeholders involved as part of what we've been talking about. And as Councillor Burdett said, very much working with mana whenua is to making sure this is something that's going to work ongoing for not just us as council to provide water, but also for the community that will be taking it and then looking after their concerns that they have with that spring, but then also the awa and the interconnectedness of everything that's up there in the Waipu. I'm cautious of talking about where we sit with the Runanga because I don't want to speak on their behalf without them here to speak to you themselves when it comes to where we are with it. But a lot of the things we're talking about are joint initiatives going forward. We've very much been talking about what would happen under the Three Waters reform and what happens to ownership going forward, how that's going to work and all of those kind of things. And the Whakatua Park trustees have also talked about that as well. So we are working through those to bring forward an MOU to council to be able to look at as to this is how we envisage this going forward between the three partners that are involved, and this is what the ongoing monitoring will look like. And a lot of those things will come out of the cultural impact assessment, particularly things like ongoing monitoring and making sure that that ecosystem is all operating as it should up there in the Waipu.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wilson. I guess my comments and would probably more to be to us as councillors that that's probably something that we should really be taking into consideration is actually because I acknowledge what you're saying around the operational stuff, but that's very much dependent on who the people are that we have in those spaces. On meaning more about what do we do in regards to setting policy to ensure that this is long lasting and enduring past this council, past other iterations of Mr. Wilson that sit around this table. So I guess that's more a question for us as a table of councillors.
Thank you, Josh. Your Worship.
Good morning, everyone. I wanted to just have a quick chat after Councillor Burdett. So you will be aware that Councillor Burdett and myself sit on the JMA, and we had a very productive meeting in the last 2 weeks, maybe last week, where exactly these types of initiatives where we work together were discussed. And I do want to compliment our staff. And the feedback I have received, and Nadine as well, she was there as well, and Councillor Burdett, has been great, that ongoing relationship, also what Councillor Wharehinga just, it needs to be enduring, ongoing relationship that outlasts generations. And the way our working to work is really paying off, and both the council and the Runanga are seeing that. So I just want to compliment our staff in the way they are working, and I'm very happy to move this paper if it hasn't been moved yet.
Thank you. And is that you, Shannon? Yep, Shannon, go.
Thank you. Yeah, I was just going to ask, I'll be happy to second it, but also can I just ask, is this a sensible site for using solar power, considering the largest OPEX for the site will be power consumption? It's primarily likely to be a daytime use facility, so the largest current draw being during the operating hours of solar. And the huge transmission distances and power security up in that location kind of lend itself to solar for carbon reduction and a contribution to reducing our carbon footprint.
Yeah, I can answer that. So it happens I'm an electrical engineer by background, and solar can't quite provide the capacity we need when we're running pumps, the torque required to actually start them and everything. Solar's more in the storage and passive. It can run telemetry, etc. There is power directly on site, so the infrastructure isn't great. It's almost a plug and play. The unit or the treatment plant itself comes in a 40-foot container, and very similar to Whatututu. So yeah, we've looked at solar, and we'll possibly add that for telemetry work, but for the actual grunt of running the pumps, no. But we've offset that by lesser energy putting into storage tanks at a lower rate, rather than, if you get what I mean, the trade-off is a softer environmental footprint, really, and using the opportunity to fill tanks at night, etc. So capacity-wise, should we lose power supply, there's always going to be storage in the tanks.
Okay.
Thank you. That got Councillor Robinson excited. Tony.
It did a wee bit. Just, Murray, what is the access mechanism for people to use the water? Is it simply rock up and fill up from a tap, or is the plan to reticulate, or what eventually?
So the reason we've picked that side of Whakarua Park. We're leasing from Whakarua Park the operational side, and in the road reserve, there's a pull-in area for the public to pull up to a pataka where there's they can fill their ICBs themselves. The community can fill up drink bottles or however they wish, and there's also a hydrant for the commercial operators who are providing a delivery service to the homes. So it's about a 15-metre by 40-metre apron in road reserve, and they just pull off from the sealed road and fill up as needed. The commercial hydrant will be locked to suppliers only, or to dedicated suppliers or licensed suppliers. And yeah, it's a 24/7 operation.
That you, Tony? Okay, looks like everyone's had a good thrash at it, and it's a lot clearer to everyone. And we've had that moved by the Mayor and seconded by Councillor Dowsing. All those in favour, show of hand. Against? Carried. As I said at the start, our public excluded is now in public, and that's the Freshwater Improvement Fund, restoring the Maori and ora of the Turanganui Estuary. Tom Porter and Ali Campbell were working on that. Do we have either of those, or is that Dave?
Moana koutou, Tom Porter here.
Oh, hi, Tom.
Hello, everyone.
Yeah,
yeah, very exciting project that thankfully the Minister for the Environment announced earlier this week. And that was due to our embargo. Just to let you all know, we've been informed by MFE to keep it under wraps until that announcement had happened. So it's great that we can now put it on the public register. It's a really exciting project. Coming in at just under 5 million for 32 sub-projects throughout the, well, it's based on the Turanganui estuary, and that's quite rare for MFE to have a project that is on an estuary base. So that's really exciting for us to focus. So we're going to get some national attention to that. So that's great. And it's going to be based for the improvements on the Taraheru, the Waikanai, and parts of the lower Wainata. So all in the Tauranga city. And if I can introduce you to Wolfgang Kantz, who some of you may well know already. He's been leading the project for us, so he has a lot more of the details. But in basic, Gisborne Council, alongside the Wastewater Management Committee and the Kiwa Group, who are our Tangata Whenua Technical Reference Group, submitted a bid to the Ministry for the Environment for this Freshwater Improvement Fund, and went through quite an extensive process over the last year. And finally, in December, it was following a period of due diligence, we've signed up to this project, which will lead until June 2026. And it's mainly things such as riparian planting, improving passages for fish, etc., and the environment. But there's a real emphasis on, firstly, jobs for nature. So there will be jobs created through this, particularly these junior kaimahi, who are going to be working particularly out of our iwi, and that process is going to take on from now till July when we appoint those people, and we're working with the Kiwa Group and Mana Whenua to appoint those people, and also for things such as our local nurseries to grow the plants. We're going to need 170,000 plants for this project, so this is going to be some consistent plants for the nurseries in Gisborne itself, some guaranteed growing for the next 4 years, I say, until June 2026 when we need to wrap this project up. And we're also looking really to engage with schools in the development of these 32 sub-projects. We've already reached out to some schools and landowners, etc., to identify places that we can be doing these schemes and get the community really involved in that through planting days and things like that. Wolf, is there anything in particular you'd like to share with the councillors?
Sure, everyone. Not really at this stage. It's just, I think it's a culmination of a lot of work by a lot of different people within council, within the community, and within Mana Whenua. And I just think it's really exciting, and look forward to the implementation phase.
all right, thanks for that, Tom and Wolf. We've got some questions from councillors there. We've got Seymour, Faulkner, Foster and Worsnop, so we'll go in that order. Councillor Seymour.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm happy to move this paper. I think this is a fantastic initiative. And as the paper mentions, there have been people concerned about the Spartina grass and the removal, and that's just one small part of it. But the fact that so many other smaller projects within the total project have been drawn together, I think it's going to be a real benefit for our city. So well done, and I'm to everyone involved, and I'm happy to move it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Faulkner.
Thank you, and I'm more than happy to second this one. Yeah, I just really congratulate all the vision that's gone into this project from everyone all the way down. I guess my only question is whether or not, well, I guess where the boundaries lie. Do they go as far as sort of Harper Road? Yeah, given that there's some interesting topography across the flats out there, so just would be really interested to know where your boundaries sit on this project. You know, thinking in terms of landowners that would probably like to be involved.
Wolf, can you answer the technical aspect?
Yep, no problem. So, as Tom mentioned, the three main river systems that flow into the estuary are included, but the project is really an urban and a semi-rural project. That was something that came very strongly through our process with the ministry. That is one of the aspects they really liked about the project, because most projects are about farming areas, and they really liked that it was about urban areas. So in line with that, the Waimata River, it extends up to pretty much Hatchie Road. So that's the end of urban area there. The Taruheru, it extends up to the Tuckers Road Bridge, and that is because it's there's an important inanga sport. In the Taruheru system, it also extends up to Taurere Marae, and that's also been done specifically so Taurere Marae has an active role in this project. In the Waikanai, it is the entire Waikanai because it is such a small system, and so we do have projects right up to the airport, and then it also includes all the little streams that flow into those bigger streams that are in and around the city. Obviously, we're not doing work everywhere, but it's a good start with a wide variety of projects in different areas.
No, it's a fantastic start. Thank you, Wolf.
Thank you. Councillor Foster.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and congratulations for all. This is an absolutely awesome project, and once it's completed, you know, our waterways and rivers will be so much better for it. My question is, I've got two questions actually. The first one is related to the Waimata. Is there any way that we can connect the activity that's happening on there when we do the proposed cyclone walkway? Is there any correlation that we can work in together to you know, fuel each other in that respect? And that's one question. Someone can answer that.
Through the chair, may I answer this? Or is
yes, feel free, Wolf.
I assume you are talking about the Taruheru walkway?
Yes. Sorry. Yeah. Sorry. The Taruheru, not the Waimata. Yeah. Sorry. The Taruheru.
Yes. We are linking all the various projects that affect each other together. And Councillor Seymour mentioned the Spartina grass, and through projects like that, we're looking to integrate the requirements of each project so they have benefits for each other. For example, the Spartina removal could well be done in a way that benefits the Taruheru walkway, and vice versa. So definitely, it's all integrated.
Yeah. Okay. And the other question I have is that relating to the Waikanai stream, there was an initiative through Leaderbrand having a pipe under Lytton Road for their salad water, which I think it all goes into the Waikanai stream, but there's a pipe that goes to the Poverty Bay Golf Club, and that initiative hasn't eventuated, but there's the opportunity to divert all that water from Leaderbrand from going into the Waikanai stream into the Poverty Bay Golf Clubs. They've got two big storage facilities, little lakes there that they have or one big one in particular, for their irrigation. So is that something that could come from this project or be initiated a bit more? Because there's a conversation has stopped for some reason. I'm not quite sure why. But yeah, everything's all there. It just needs the will to progress it.
So through you, Chair, I'll just jump in there. It's a separate issue. It's around wastewater and stormwater issues that our team are dealing with in Lifelines. So we have got some conversations. Staff have been talking with leader brands, and I know they're about to make contact again with the golf course as to what they're able to do there or not.
Okay, cool. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Worsthorpe.
Yeah, thanks. Obviously, I'm very supportive of this also. So my question relates to the fact that over the time that I've been in council, I've heard a few different people raise the issue of old refuse sites on the riverbanks in different places. And I just wondered whether they were considered or identified or addressed at all through this project. So that's the first question. And the second question was just around my experience of riparian areas and planting and whatnot. Is that they are hugely vulnerable to whatever is next door. So are we keeping an eye, I suppose, and actively engaging with the neighbours of these areas? Because, for such an amazing project to end up with, for example, vines smothering natives and things like that would be a terrible outcome. But it's quite a likely outcome, given that urban areas have an awful lot of things that are inclined to encroach on other things. So just the strategy around that too, please.
I'll answer the second one first, Wolf, and then I'll let you answer the first one if that's all right. Yes, to the chair. Thanks, Councillor. It's a very good point, and there's a couple of aspects. Firstly, within the project itself, we're going to have pest management for the duration, so give those plants a chance to start up and get a good life going. But equally, we've got an engagement plan throughout the project, so we'll be talking to neighbouring communities, etc., and promoting it, having planting days, etc., to sort of really get people engaged in this project, and then through that educating that, hey, you're next door to this, can you just make sure your weeds don't encroach onto this, that kind of aspect. Wolf, anything technical to add?
Yeah, just in terms of your comment there, we also are, as part of the engagement plan, is setting up care groups per river, and with the intention that that care group in collaboration with Whenua have an active role in the longevity of what we do. So there's a specific budget allocation being able to establish those care groups. We also have, in terms of other aspects, we have the fencing budget to try and fence out some of the impacts, especially, like, for example, the semi-rural areas where there are still livestock, so we can prevent the impact of livestock on those areas. And we have, as Tom mentioned, we have pest control budgets for both plants and animals. The question regarding landfills, I have not been across that. I believe it's something that is being dealt with by the integrated catchment management team. There has been a whole lot of work done on identifying where the landfills are, but I'm not across the detail of that, and that was not included in this project.
Okay, thank you. Is there the intention to be buffers at all, or will these riparian areas run right up to landowner sections? Because I know education's great, but we all know that education, if it was really successful 100%, we wouldn't have any people dumping rubbish, for example. So just, what is our strategy for ensuring that even those who aren't that willing to be educated don't put at risk the work of those people who will be doing the care groups, for example? I just know Wisteria is a classic example. It will climb right over mature trees. So just how do we protect it?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point you raise, and I haven't thought about it like that, if I'm honest. In some areas, we have specifically placed roads between access. We have to access these areas to maintain them. So we've placed the roads between the neighbouring fence and planting. So that gives an area of 3 or so meters of managed land. But yeah, it's a really good point, and we'll take that and think about it some more. It is I mean, yeah, we need to make sure it is sustainable.
All right, thank you. Yeah, that's you, Kerry. Yep. Councillor Arkwright Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you. There's so much, in my view, of being a resident of this region all my life, excitement in this whole framework, because it's a conversation that's been decades in respect to the Māori and the ora of our awa in this region. Amazing, waterways, tributaries, and everything. So I feel like the comms, we need to be really really expressing this absolute opportunity that exists for all residents of this region to absolutely see our awa and our moana and all things to do with water, I guess, being treated with more respect and the mana it deserves, because that's what this is all about. But I know that since I've been here all my life, one of the key messages that we often don't like to read in the newspaper is the scoure's been opened after stormwater obviously overflows and all that, and we know drain wise and a whole bunch of work, thank you to all the staff, has been happening in these spaces. So that's has been a key contributor to, I guess, the degradation for decades in our region of our awa. So the impetus is also on ensuring that the pipelines, obviously leading to wastewater, the work that's happening there, to have that not be in the front page or, noted, because I know that's often what we get, kind of yelled at for, and with all due respect to wastewater going into our. So is that in line somewhere else down the pipe with regard to this project, or is it in the mix too?
Through you, Chair, a lot of the project and part of the reason why it was funded by the government was because Wolf and the team did a really good job showing the interaction between what's happening in our urban waterways and then our spends in our stormwater areas and our wastewater areas, so that these projects complement each other. So they very much run alongside, parallel with each other, and it's all about how we're going to improve water quality within our tūranga waterways that we have at the moment. But very much the impetus and drive and all of those things are still there for DrainWise, and we're still working through how we can always refine that and do that better.
Thank you, David. And thank you, Wolf. Of course, your expertise, and Tom, much appreciated in this. Very excited, happy to help. Obviously, I've been involved with the Waikanae stream space, but for me, it's any way I could get the community involved. It's just awesome opportunity. So, kia ora, ngā mihi.
Kia ora.
Thank you, Meredith. Josh.
Thank you, Andy. Kia ora, Tom. Thank you for this. Morena Wolf, nice to see you, my man. I did want to ask, I feel like I already know what the answer would be, but it would be remiss of me to not ask on behalf of my Ngāti One One whanaumas. In this project, is the Kōpua Whakapata stream also included in this?
Yes.
Oh, sweet. Cool. I actually thought that it might possibly not be, considering that the paper is written so Tūranganui specific, right? And there are delineations when we start calling things Tūranganui, and we base them on rivers and all of that kind of stuff. So I thought that Kōpua Whakapata might have been missed out, but it makes me really happy to hear that that's included in there. Thanks very much.
Josh, it's all the streams that flow into the Tūranga. So if you look at everything to the Kaiti side of the Waimata, all those little streams that flow in there, they are also in the project.
Well, thanks for that clarification. Yeah. Councillor Seymour?
I'll save it for my right of reply. But if everyone's finished, I'll just have it.
Tony?
Just a comment you made It wasn't you, Tom. I'm not sure who made it. Must have been Wolfgang. Talking about the extension up the Taruhiru up to the marae, so the marae could feel involved. What is the provision for mana whenua being involved in this? Is this an absolute partnership, or again, are we taking charge and involving mana whenua even when we see fit? Because it should be well and truly clear that the people seated at this table want mana whenua, tangata whenua involved in all of these things at the outset. And Josh has already made the point in relation to the previous discussion.
I can answer that, or Dave, would you like to answer that?
Yeah, sure. So through you, Chair, we have been working with the Kiwa Group, which is an advisory group to the Wastewater Management Committee, and we've been working directly with the iwi groups involved to make sure that they have representation application that was jointly prepared by us and the Kiwa Group, signed off by the WMC chairs when that went through as an application to MFE. The work that we're doing on the ground is very much in partnership with mana whenua. So for Ngāti Onioni, for example, they would like to use Whaia Titarangi to do a lot of the work. We're talking about how many FTE we're able to employ directly mana whenua, paid positions that sit within iwi organisations or the groups that will be doing the work. So it very much is a true partnership that we've been working really hard to make sure that our mana whenua are involved the whole way through, and Wolf's been leading a lot of that discussion with the Kiwa Group and others to make sure that they're involved with the work and how it's going to be rolled out, and from the planning to the design to the actual on the ground implementation and monitoring and those kind of things.
That's fantastic to hear, and thank you.
All right, thanks for that. It's been moved by Councillor Seymour and seconded by Councillor Faulkner, so we'll go to Councillor Seymour for a reply.
Yes, I just quickly wanted to reinforce some comments made by Councillor Worsnop in my right of reply, because the weeds because I'm familiar with properties on the Waimata River, the convolvulus and stuff, which landowners can make an effort to get rid of, it runs right down to the water's edge at the moment where areas are planted. So weed infestation is going to be quite significant. So we need to plan for that, because it would be great to get this planting done, but it would be awful if 10 years after the finish of the project, it's swamped by, as Councillor Worsnop suggested, wisteria, but there's convolvulus and a multitude of other, including that false bamboo, which we see on the riverbank right in the esplanade. So council have some weeds of our own on the riverbanks already, and we hopefully that will be captured and dealt to before the planting goes on. Are we able to confirm that?
I may provide some comment there. It is a substantial project, but it won't address all the waterways in the city. With the budget we have, there are certain areas that we will be implementing projects, but in those areas, we will be including a plan for ongoing pest control, both plants and animals. The reason I say that, Councillor Seymour, is because for example, some of those areas on the Waimata at this stage are not as identified as a project, but there are other projects, other areas where we have identified that, and just making sure our expectations are all the same. It would be, if we got 10 times the money, I think we could go everywhere, but at this stage, it really is just a start.
Thanks very much. It's a great project.
Can I just say something through the chair? On the lower Waimata, we are working with the Waimata Catchment Care Group on a restoration plan for the lower Waimata that will help plan out some of those actions needed. Thank you.
Thanks, Jake. All right, all those in favour? Show of hands. Against? Carried. Okay, that's the end of the meeting for me. We have got a discussion at this meeting, so if meeting support can turn us off for now, we'll stay on board for